Stability might protect you from risk and uncertainty and uncomfortability, but it also protects you from your life. Stability feels like the responsible choice, but it might actually be the most dangerous decision that you can make over the course of your life. It's not something that happens all at once, and it is slowly and quietly, it compounds. Choosing to stay safe and comfortable and not take those risks ultimately amount at the end of your life to a life that you never lived. The uncomfortable truth is that choosing stability and staying in your comfort zone won't make you feel alive. It gives you predictability and control and just makes life manageable, which we all need at times. But when you're constantly choosing stability, then what you're doing is trading aliveness and the best parts of what this life has to offer for comfort. And there's a fundamental difference in how you are approaching making decisions in your life, whether you're just trying to get through life and make it tolerable, or whether you want to get the most out of it and really be able to say that you lived your life and that you felt alive, and that you took the risks that you wanted to take, and that you bet on yourself. Because on a very psychological level, our reward system does not thrive with predictability. In the realm of psychology, so much research has been done around our reward systems, and our brains do not thrive and our reward systems do not thrive with predictability. Over a century of psychological research around reward systems and dopamine can tell us that the highest dopamine response that we can have comes from unpredictable rewards. And in the 1930s, there's this Harvard scientist that developed what is called a Skinner box because his name was Skinner. And a Skinner box is ultimately a little tiny box with a rat in it with a lever that when the lever is pressed, it releases a reward, which is snacks for this rat. And what Skinner was able to show in part with this experimentation with the Skinner box is that rats who got a reward every time they pressed the lever, they got a snack, didn't press the lever as much and weren't motivated to press the lever as much as the rats who only got a snack every once in a while when they pressed the lever. And this was ultimately setting up that unpredictable reward system. And what this shows is that motivation and dopamine are at their peak and at their highest when that reward is variable and unpredictable. The rats didn't know if when they pressed the lever they were going to get a treat, a snack, or not. And so they pressed the lever way more often because they were more motivated, and the dopamine surge that they got was way higher than rats who were living in a consistent environment where they knew when they pressed the lever that they were going to get a treat, whereas that is kind of a simulation of life. If we structure our lives so that we're the rats who get a treat every time we press a lever, and that we live in this perfectly controlled environment that we understand to a T, then we're going to get really bored. And our dopamine systems and our reward system, our motivation system isn't meant to thrive in that environment, and it can't. You can't feel the highest of highs that life has to offer unless you expose yourself to sometimes pressing the lever, taking risks, doing things that might not work. And the dark side of this research is that pressing that lever can become really addictive, and that research further in variable reward systems has shown how things that we can't control and we can't predict actually can result in really addictive patterns. Think about gambling and even social media. But we can actually utilize this. We can actually reverse engineer this addictive nature in ways that are going to be helpful for our life. We can utilize the addictive nature of unpredictable rewards to embrace uncertainty, embrace failure, and embrace the unknown. The unknown feels terrifying. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, but it's also where the most meaningful experiences in life come from. And it's part of the reason that stability consistently, long term in your life, won't make you feel alive. If we are living in fear about change and the unknowns and uncertainties and potential for failure, we keep our potential for happiness stagnant as well. The tricky part is that stability and predictability feel really good in the short term. But long term, it's actually one of the scariest paths that we can go down. Because slowly, over years and decades, without realizing it, you stop feeling fully alive. You stop reaching for your highest potential. And you stop seeing how amazing life can be. I think when we're talking about stability and structure in our lives, it's really important to recognize the harsh realities that we do live within. There is a really helpful, another psychological concept called Maslow's hierarchy of needs that I think is really helpful and very illustrative to point out that when it comes to the bottom layers of the pyramid, there are certain things that all of us absolutely need, like food, water, housing, safety. There are things that I'm not talking about here when I'm encouraging you to take risks and experience uncertainty in the unknowns. I just want to stay grounded here that we do need certain things met. But in our modern lives, we are in such a different place than even 100 years ago or more. People struggled, and people today still do struggle. But people very much struggled in earlier times as humans to have their basic needs met, where they could think about going up higher on the hierarchy and reaching, that self-actualization in these other tiers that we're talking about once we get past those baseline biological needs. People had to worry about tuberculosis, all sorts of infectious diseases, dying in childbirth. Many people didn't have basic rights to even exercise their freedom or experience any type of freedom. And so my point here is that we are in a very unique position within the arc of humanity where we have the option to take risks because we are able to meet our baseline needs. Again, not all of us. I don't want to come across as saying that it's not a struggle to survive for a lot of people on this earth still. And we should all strive to create as much freedom and as much empowerment for everybody as possible so that we can all experience freedom. And biologically, these basic levels are where we are wired through, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution to crave stability because it has been such a struggle for humans to meet those needs in the past. And I think it's important to recognize that, yes, that's biologically wired in us as well for that stability to feel great and comforting because that's what we need to survive. But once you have those met, I want you to shoot for the stars. We don't have to allow our biological wiring to dictate the choices that we make now as humans living in modern times. We need a certain level of stability, but once you have that, then I want you to strive to reach your highest potential and experience all that you can in this one life that we have to live. And buckle up because this is where we get to Nietzsche. In everything that Nietzsche ever wrote, he's strongly urging us to expand into self-actualization and express what he calls as our will to power. It's our will to life and our will to live and our will to reach outside of the realm of stability and comfort in order to exceed our current potential and just experience the breadth of what life has to offer. So I'm going to read a passage to you here from his work called Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And this work has a lot of individual sections in it. And this section is called On Immaculate Perception. And just some background on that framing is that Nietzsche believed that life wasn't meant to be observed from a distance. And I think that that's what immaculate perception means, is just this sterile way of observing life without getting your hands dirty. There's a difference between living as an observer and living as an active participant who's willing your life forward. And there's some really beautiful words in here, so I do want to read this. To be happy in gazing with a dead will, free from the grip and greed of selfishness, cold and gray as ash in body, but with intoxicated moon eyes. That would be the dearest thing to me. Thus does the seduced one seduce himself. To love the earth as the moon loves it, and with the eye only to feel its beauty. And this I call immaculate perception of all things, to want nothing else from them, but to be allowed to lie before them as a mirror with 100 eyes. Oh, you sentimental hypocrites, you lustful ones, you lack innocence in your desire, and therefore now you slander desire. Truly you do not love the earth as creators, procreators, and those who have joy in becoming. Where is innocence? Where there is will to procreation. And he who seeks to create beyond himself, in my view, has the purest will. Where is beauty? Where I must will with my whole will. Where I will love and perish, that an image may not remain merely an image. Loving and perishing, these have rhymed from eternity. Will to love, that is to be willing also to die. Thus I speak to you cowards. Very Nietzsche-esque. But I just think that that's beyond a poetic way to put it, is that life and love lives next to and in relationship with death and failure and all of the things that can also coexist right along with being alive. Loving and perishing, these have rhymed from eternity. Will to love, that is to be willing also to die, is like a perfect kind of expression of what the cost of taking risks and living outside of your comfort zone looks like. Yes, the cost might be failure, but without that, you can't experience the fullness of truly feeling alive. Nietzsche believed that life wasn't meant to be observed, but to be lived. And you can't participate fully in your life if you're optimizing it and clinging desperately to stability. Imagine reaching the end of your life and looking back and realizing that you've played it safe, that you never took chances on what you really desired. You chose stability over and over, and now that time is gone and you can never get it back. That's one of the scariest realizations that you can ever have in life. Not that things went wrong, but that nothing ever really happened, because you chose what felt safe instead of what made you feel alive. Stability might protect you from risk and uncertainty and uncomfortability, but it also protects you from your life. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support my channel. Thanks. Bye.